All right, welcome guys. So this video, it's going to be all about stretching and the importance of stretching and why I think everybody should be stretching, or at least every athlete should be stretching at the very least. But I think everybody should implement a stretching routine. Um, but frankly, I know a lot of athletes and I know a lot of people who aren't even really athletes, but they're bodybuilders. They do a lot of weightlifting and they don't stretch at all. And it's funny to me because I don't like I don't know. I've always had stretching as a key part of my routines, as a key part of lifting. I mean, when I first started going to the gym, sure, didn't really do all that much stretching, but when I really started to get into athleticism and when I really started to get into overall fitness and not just trying to look good, that's when I started to implement stretching. And ever since then, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer to stretch, but there's also the fact that I've experienced the benefits. So now that I've experienced the benefits, I would never go back to just working out without having some sort of stretching routine as a part of that. And I don't even really stretch with my workouts. I stretch at the very end of every day. I'm going to get into this later. I'm going to talk about dynamic stretching versus static stretching and the times of the day to do these. So I'll get into that later in the video. Right now, we're just going to talk about why exactly you need to stretch, or why I think you need to stretch. So the first thing is just going to be muscle tightness, muscle tension. So even if you aren't working out, and if you are, this is obvious, but if you aren't working out, you will still build some form of muscle tension. Right now, I'm building muscle tension by sitting upright in a chair. I could even be slouched like this. I'm still building muscle tension, just now it's in my lower back instead of my core where it should be, right? So no matter what you're doing, you're going to be working and tensing some part of your body. And for people who aren't very active, unless you're living in your mom's basement, you probably have a job, and a lot of times those jobs will be spent sat in a specific place for 6 to 8 hours of the day. That will create a lot of tension in, for example, the hip flexors, in the core, because you are engaging your core to sit upright. Not so much the core though, because you are still sitting, but your core is going to get tighter. Your back, especially the upper part of your back and your neck, is going to start to tense, and it's going to start to move forward like this. Yeah, we don't want that. So an important thing to do for you, if you are working an office job, for example, is come home after your job every day and do some stretching, right? Stretch out that neck, stretch out the back, stretch out the lower body, especially the hip flexors. The hip flexors are going to be a big one for you. But essentially, the reason why stretching is so important is just because pretty much for anybody, you are creating some form of tension throughout the day within your body, and it's essential that we release this tension. Otherwise, it'll just get trapped within the body as a form of energy, and this tension won't really go anywhere. It won't go away, and it'll over time build, because you work the same job every day, correct? So you're not just going to be sitting here creating this tension today. You're going to be doing it today and then building it up a little bit more tomorrow, and then a little bit more the day after that. So what we want to do is incorporate a routine where we are releasing this tension after work every day, so that we aren't building up more tension in the body as time goes on, because eventually this will get to a point where it is chronic and there's very little you can do to fix it except just start stretching. So it's easier to start now while you're ahead than wait until it's too late, and at that point it'll be a lot harder. But even at that point, stretching will still be your best friend. So I would just incorporate it now before you have to have that regret in the future. But yeah, so another thing, I briefly mentioned this, but energy in the body, energy needs to be released from the body. And one of the best ways to do this is through stretching. One of the best ways to release nervous tension and nervous energy is through stretching out the muscles, just because the relaxation in the muscles allows for relaxation of the nerves, and that allows for a release of energy from the body. So another thing is, if you are an athlete, this doesn't really apply to the office worker, for example, but if you are an athlete, you are way, way, way less likely to get injured if you are stretching consistently, And on the contrary, you are much more likely to injure yourself if you aren't stretching, simply because your muscles are not used to a level of stress and a level of strain, right, from stretching. And if you are exercising consistently, you are building tension. And so if this tension isn't properly dealt with, any form of strain on that muscle will cause more damage than it would if that muscle was naturally stretched out and relaxed. And so the last thing for this list is just optimizing your recovery and optimizing your performance. So in recovery, what we're doing is we're allowing our muscles to work through the damage that we cause throughout the day by exercising. And yes, it's a healthy form of damage, but it's still damage to the muscles. So they need time to repair that damage and heal that damage. One thing is that inflammation that's created and that tension that's created when we're working out needs somewhere to go, right? So that tension needs to go somewhere. So what we can do is we can stretch the leg out, stretch the muscle out, and this will allow the muscle to naturally release this tension and this inflammation the way that it's supposed to. All right. I had to fix the lighting quick, so we're just going to get right back into it. So the next thing is, what exactly happens if we don't stretch? So I mentioned the benefits of stretching, why stretching is good, but what exactly can happen if you aren't stretching, right? So the first thing is bodybuilders. So people who are lifting weights, people who are building up the look of their body, they're doing a lot of muscle hypertrophy. Or if you're just weightlifting, you're going to the gym and you're building your muscles, building your strength. Over time, what's going to happen is you are creating constant inflammation in the muscles, and then you should at least be giving the muscle a proper amount of time to heal, right? But the muscle doesn't necessarily heal itself all the way, because one aspect of physical work, of working the muscles, so you have contraction, but then you also have expansion, and a lot of people miss this part. You need to also expand the muscle, stretch the muscle out just as much as you are contracting the muscle. So for every lifting session you have where you are contracting your muscles, you should be taking time to then stretch those muscles back out. This works both aspects of the muscle, right? When you are only lifting, you are only getting really half of the workout. And if you don't stretch over time, what's going to happen is your muscles are going to get, you're going to get the typical big, bulky bodybuilder, not even look, but feel, right? So your muscles are going to get stiffer. Your muscles are going to get harder to use. And it's actually going to be something that over time gets in your way more than actually helps you, right? So if you are lifting weights, I would highly recommend you also stretch, because that is half of the exercise that you're missing out on if you're not. And on top of that, what you'll do is you'll create all of this muscle tension, you'll create all of this stiffness in your body, and it'll be really hard for you to do physical activities. Like, I have a friend of mine in school, love him to death, but he's been a bodybuilder since the same age I started lifting, but he's been more serious about it the whole time. So he's just, ironically, he's this big, bulky guy, looks like he'd be athletic, but when we're in gym class, for example, you can tell he struggles a lot to run in particular, and I know this is just because of how stiff his muscles are from years of lifting with no stretching whatsoever. I even asked him the other day as a joke, I was like, bro, do you stretch at all? And he's like, no. This is the point. If he were to start stretching, he would most likely be an incredible athlete. He has the physique, he has the size, right? And he's got the strength. But he's missing the movement aspect. He's missing the ability to flow with his body and flow with his movements. And this is what stretching allows you to have. So this leads me into the next point. So for anyone who's an athlete in particular, you're playing a sport, stretching is going to be essential for you to develop flow and effortless motion with your body. So I know I played soccer this year, And a lot of the kids that I played with don't really stretch at all. And this didn't make sense to me going into it because I had assumed that all athletes had a similar mindset to me and that all athletes would try to optimize their sport as best as possible. And so it only made sense that all athletes would stretch as well and would make sure that stretching was part of their routine. I think I knew about 3 guys that I would probably say stretched on the team. And it's sad to see because stretching is such an advantage when it comes to athleticism and sports in general. So when it comes to running in particular, I think that I can last a lot longer than somebody who doesn't stretch because my muscles are used to tension, relaxation, tension, relaxation. But if I were to train my muscles for only tension, over time what would happen is the more I run, the more my legs get tense, and so therefore the more tired I would start to get. Whereas when stretching helps you with this. When you're in tune with your body, you can more consciously relax the muscles. And when you stretch, even if you aren't tuned to your body will naturally have a higher level of relaxation when you're exercising and when you are running, for example. And so this higher level of relaxation will allow you to have greater endurance because your muscles don't tense up as quickly. The quicker your muscles tense up, the more they work themselves, and therefore the faster that you lose speed and you lose endurance, right? So the faster you get out of breath, the faster you start to lose speed, and the faster your muscles and body starts to get tired. But when you have a natural level of relaxation in the body, but you've also been training strength, so you have the ability to tense the muscles as well. When you have this combination, you will not only, in my opinion, be the fastest on the team, but you'll be able to run for the longest. This is just for my athletes out there. So you will be able to run faster than most of your peers, and you will be able to run longer because you have a consistent stretching routine. And of course, stretching isn't the only thing to go into this. Training is a big aspect, but I believe that stretching will give you a major advantage. Okay, so the next thing I got is just muscle soreness and tension. So let's give this example. So a few weeks back, I started going to the gym again for the first time in a year. So I quit going to the gym, decided I was going to stay home and focus on basically body weight training, building my foundation first, going back to square one because I was uneducated when I started going to the gym, didn't know what I was doing, so didn't build a proper foundation. So I thought, let me build a foundation with body weight and then come back to the gym later on. So when I started going back, I had intense soreness the first day. My arms rather, I could not fully extend this arm. I think this was about as far as I got after the 3rd day, I believe, is what I'm thinking of. It might have been 3 days, might have been 4, but I could only really extend my arm to about here. So what ended up happening was I stretched the muscle out. Well, I gave it time first. So when you have like real soreness, like where your muscles are like fully destroyed and you really can't use them and they're like stiff from how sore they are, take a little break. All right, don't stretch those out too quickly. But what I did was I waited until my muscles felt a little bit better. And then what I did was I started to stretch the bicep out. And after I think about a day, I could extend my bicep again. And then after that day, pain started to go away. Ever since that point, I have not stopped pushing myself as hard as I did the first week back. So I've even tried to start pushing myself harder. But I've had no soreness at all. No tension, no soreness in my body, nothing. I have a little bit of tension in my back, but that's been there for a couple of years. I'm working on that. But aside from that, I have no new tension coming up in my body. None at all, anywhere, right? So this just goes to show, and the only thing I do is stretch, right? The only thing I really do for this is stretch. So this goes to show the power of stretching. I work out, I go to the gym about 4 days a week, and I'm working out either doing plyometrics or just training for a sport like running drills, whatever, every day, right? So I'm either in the gym or I'm doing a body weight workout at home. And then I'm also every single day either doing drills or running plyometrics. And when I do plyometrics, it probably will end up being both, just because plyometrics don't take too long. So if I get my plyometrics done in like 15 minutes, I'm going to go train for an hour. But I can do all of this while having no tension or soreness in my body. And this is just because I've been stretching consistently for a few months now. It's been about 7. So I've been stretching for about 7 months consistently, and these are the results that I can say I've had, which is pretty nice. Just a few months of this takes me like 5 minutes a day, and I now can work out as much as I want to, and I get little to no soreness at all the following days after. And this is a huge advantage, right? Because I can make more progress than the person who's got to take 2 days off because he's sore, because he's too sore, because he worked himself too hard one day. I can work myself just as hard, if not harder, and then come right back the next day with the same level of energy and the same level of potency, because my muscles aren't lacking at all. Like, my muscles have the ability to recover faster because of the fact that I stretch, and more fully. A lot of people aren't, this is a bit of a rant, but a lot of people who are lifting in the gym aren't even actually recovering fully because they're not stretching. You can't fully recover a muscle until you've stretched it back out. Okay, so the next thing I got is trauma and energy getting stuck in the body. So if you aren't stretching, then what will end up happening is throughout the day, you will start to pick up energy from other people. If you are attuned, you will notice this. If you are not, you won't notice, but it's still happening. You're picking up energy from the people around you, from the conversations you're having, from the interactions you're having, and from the environment that you're in, so the rooms that you're in, right? So you're picking up all of this energy around you, and then normally you don't do anything with it. Normally it doesn't go anywhere. But if you were to start implementing a stretching routine, if you were to start stretching consistently every single day, every other day, whatever, but if you were to start stretching consistently, what would happen is this energy would naturally be released from the body in your stretching routine. So for me, I've been energetically tuned pretty much my whole life. So I can pick up subtle energies. I can pick up when my energy is off based on another one, or if my energy is just off based on my own influence, right? So I can notice when I'm picking up more energy from other people that I would like. What would end up happening is over time, this became so overwhelming that I would essentially shut down. And so when I would get too much energy, when I would build up too much energy, I would shut down. And this led me to being very lethargic and very tired a lot of the time. I would feel tired most of the time. And this was just a result of me picking up so much energy that I would shut down mentally because I didn't know how else to deal with it. But stretching just by itself is able to release the tension in the body, release the extra energy in the body, giving you more mental clarity, more awareness, and allowing you to feel more awake and more energized, because other people's energy can weigh us down, making us feel heavier and more tired. Even though we have more energy within us, it's not our energy, and so it's just holding us down. And the last thing is, as we get older, what we don't want to happen is for us to end up starting to slow down, us starting to cramp up more, like my back right now, for example. You don't want to be experiencing this at a young age, or as you grow older. You don't want to experience this in old age either, right? You don't want to be too tight in your muscles and too slow to be able to play sports with your kids or your grandkids, or even just in general, right? I want to be 70 playing basketball with the homies, right? I want to be dunking at 85 still, right? I want to be able to move in old age But what will happen for anybody who's not consistently stretching, over time you will slow down. Your body will slow down, and you will, over time, start to become more tight, right? A lot of people talk about a tension in the lower back and in just their back in general and their neck, right? This is all a result of them spending years and years and years not stretching, not moving their body. And so obviously none of us here, if you're watching self-improvement content through, you do not want to be growing old and but starting to feel slow, starting to feel tight and tense, right? So yeah, quickly, I'm just going to talk about how you can implement stretching into your routine, how you can make it part of your day-to-day. So the first thing I just want to talk about is dynamics versus static stretching. So dynamics are going to be quick, 5-second stretches where you are stretching the muscle for a few seconds, releasing, stretching for a few seconds, releasing. And essentially what this does is it stretches out the muscle, so it starts to get it stretched out and activated. It starts to bring blood flow to the muscle, right? And it keeps the tension in the muscle, right? So dynamics are good for pre-workout. Any athletes know this. Dynamics are good for before the workout because they warm up the muscles, right? They warm up the muscles, they stretch out the muscles, and this allows you to prevent injuries, right? Static stretching is holding a stretch for up to 30 seconds. You can do more, but I've heard 30 seconds is usually the cutoff, and I only do 30 seconds. You only really need 30 seconds. So the key with these two is to realize that static is to be done after exercise, is to be done to stretch the muscle back out and to begin recovery. Dynamics are to be done as a warm-up to the workout, before the workout. So in my morning routine, this is how I implement dynamics. In my morning routine, I do my whole morning routine. I wake up, brush my teeth, I come in here, make my bed and stuff, meditate. Then I go take a cold shower. And right after the cold shower, I'm in here getting ready to go for a run. Before that run, I always take about 5 minutes. Doesn't even have to be anything more than 5 minutes a day. I take about 5 minutes and I just do some dynamics right here. Or I'll do them at the door before I go for my run. What this does is it allows me to warm my body up, warm my muscles up, get myself ready to be moving. This helps me to feel better on my run, and this helps me to feel better and more activated throughout the day, right? So by activated, I mean my muscles are just ready to go. My muscles are able to do what's needed to be done whenever I need them. And it isn't a struggle for me to get them to work. Whereas before, a lot of times I would have to warm my muscles up before exercise. I don't need this when I'm doing dynamics because my dynamics warm me up first thing in the morning, and I usually stay warmed up throughout the rest of the day. Of course, a quick warm up before I get into any intense exercise, but for the most part, I don't need to do any more dynamic stretching. And my muscles just feel ready to go. So if I was to just go out and play some basketball for 10 minutes, I can just go and do that, and that's not a struggle for me. That doesn't feel hard, right? My muscles don't feel any stress is key. I don't have a lot of stress. And then when I'm done with the day, when I have done my last workout of the day, because I always do a workout after dinner. So I do my workout after dinner, and then I do static stretching. And this is essentially to stretch the muscle back out and initiate recovery. So the best thing you can do, easiest way to do it, pick a routine, pick a time of day. So do you want to do dynamics? Do you want to do static? Do you want to do both? I would recommend both. I like doing dynamics in the morning, static at night. Static after all of the work is done, after all of your exercise is done, dynamic beforehand. And I actually do the same dynamic. I do the same dynamic with my showers. Take my cold showers in the morning to prep me for the day. Take the warm showers at night to begin relaxing myself and start recovery. So once you've decided whether you're going to do static or you're going to do dynamic stretching, pick a time of day, right? So I like to do it first thing in the morning. Well, not necessarily first thing, but one of the first things I do in the morning. And then I also like to do it one of my last things I do before bed. So the last thing is just going to be actually implementing it. You actually have to go out and practice it. One thing I will say though, start slow. Don't push yourself into stretching more than you need to, because this is not what stretching is for. Stretch as far as you can stretch. So for example, when I started in July of this year. I couldn't touch my toes for the life of me. I could probably get about halfway from my knee to my foot with my hand. I can get to my foot now. But this is after months of stretching consistently. So my point with this is just start with where you're at. Don't push yourself more than you have to, because this isn't what stretching is for. Stretching is simply to release the tension that is in your muscles that you are currently at. Stretching is not, I want to lift as much as possible. I want to lift more than that guy. I want to get big and get strong. Stretching is, I am taking care of my body now. And so therefore I'm not competing with anybody else. I'm not looking at the guy on the YouTube video that's showing me this new stretching exercise, and I'm trying to get as far as he is. No, he's been doing this for years. What you need to be doing is simply doing whatever feels tense, or whatever you start to feel the stretch without any pain. If you have any pain, you are stretching too far and you need to take a little bit back, right? Let a little bit of that tension off and then sit there. Sit in the stretch, not the pain. Once it starts to hurt, you're too far. If you don't feel anything at all, you're not stretching enough. So yeah. Aside from that, there's not too much to actually implementing it. I mean, I feel like it's not that hard of a thing to implement. I was able to start this when I was at the worst point in my life, and I was able to stay consistent with it. Maybe I'm different. If you really struggle with it, just do what you do with any other habit, right? Start small, implement. Let me do one stretch tonight for 30 seconds, right? Let me touch my toes for 30 seconds tonight, and then do that again tomorrow. At the end of the week, add one more exercise. If it's really that much of a struggle for you, do that. Realistically, though, it shouldn't be that hard. Just stay consistent with it, and don't push yourself too far. That's the biggest thing I'm going to keep saying. Don't push yourself too far with it. Take your time with it. Let this be a lifelong practice. We're looking for longevity. We are looking for sustainability. We are not looking to just undo years of damage in a night. That will not happen, and you will cause more damage if you try. So yeah, that's it. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, peace.